Hey, I'm Matt Ruszczak. I'm the Vice President of Economic Development at CoStep.
Matt, we try to meet up every month to talk about the latest sales tax revenue figures for the Rio Grande Valley. We're looking at the October report. This information you collect from the Texas Comptroller's office. How does the October report look?
It is quite good. So for the benefit of the audience, the October report covers the August sales. So this is back to school retail season. Obviously, we expected a good number, and we got a pretty good number. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about two comparisons. Number one, comparing the report from October 2022, so this month's report, to last year, the same time frame, October 2022, and then look at year-to-date numbers from year-to-date 2022 to 2019, essentially looking at pre-pandemic to now as we're exiting the pandemic, what do the numbers look like? So, looking at this year-over-year comparison report for October, the numbers are quite good. If we look at the region as a whole, the Rio Grande Valley as a whole, we have 37 out of the 44 communities that are up year-over-year, which is very strong. We have 33 out of those 44 up over 5%, and we have 12 out of the 44, so more than one quarter, up over 20%. The numbers as a whole for the Rio Grande Valley, we are up 13.29%, comparing once again the October report 2022 to the October report of 2021. Our reference point is usually the state. The state is up 15.68% for the same time frame, so a few percentage points above us, but in the general ballpark, and both numbers are obviously significantly above the current inflation numbers, which means that spending continues to increase organically, not just matching inflation, but actually exceeding inflation. And looking at the individual counties, we see particular strength in the larger counties, and that's been consistent in the report for most of the year now. We have the larger counties, Hidalgo County up 13.63%, and we have Cameron County up 12.41%. We've had this among the smaller counties. Stark County was lagging a little bit, was up 8.4%, so still up, but not as strong as the larger counties. Willacy County continues to go up and down, kind of roller coaster numbers from them. So actually this month they were fantastic. They're up 42.93%. But those numbers have been roller coastering for a while. Looking at some of the major communities, just as a quick point there, if we look at the major markets, Brownsville up 14.7%, doing very well. McAllen up 16.65%, doing particularly well. Weslaco is our mid-market gauge, up 12.87%. Our entertainment and leisure spending in South Padre Island was good, up 6.37%. And the outlet mall in Mercedes continues to recover quite strongly, up 24.83%. So good positive numbers all across the board comparing year over year. Like I mentioned, the most interesting aspect is how do the numbers now compare to the numbers pre-pandemic? The reason why I want to look at that is, are we growing as a region? Is spending activity growing? And is spending activity outperforming inflation? And the short answer to all those questions is yes, and then some. So if we look at comparing the year-to-date numbers for 2022 to the year-to-date numbers from 2019 for the state as a whole as our reference points, the state as a whole is up 31.1%, which is a whopper. When we're looking at 3 years and a time period covered by a pandemic, that is really a strong performance. How about the Valley? Well, the Valley is up even stronger, up 35.35%. So our spending here in the region is outpacing even the strong growth we see across the state. Looking at the individual counties, what we're seeing once again is strong growth in the larger counties. We have Hidalgo County up 36.64%. We have Cameron County up 33.85%. The smaller counties are also growing, not as strongly. Stark County up 24.3%, and Willacy County up 12.5%. So good performance out of them, particularly strong performance out of the larger counties. Major markets, once again, given the comparison, McAllen is up 31.15% over that time period. We have Brownsville up 38.17%, Weslaco up 36.48%, and with South Padre Island, definitely leisure is up up 41.65%. So compared to the state, we're doing very well. How about compared to some of the other major markets and border markets in the state? This gets really interesting. Once again, the Valley number is up 35.35%. If we look to our neighbors to the west, that's Webb County, they're up for the same comparison, year-to-date 2022 to year-to-date 2019, up 28.63%, so we've outperformed them. If we go upriver to the west, we look at Maverick County, Eagle Pass, they're up 21.72%, so we're outperforming them. We go even further down and go to Valverde County, Del Rio, they're up 23.08%, so we are outperforming them as well. We have to go all the way to El Paso to actually meet our match, and interestingly enough, it's an exact match. For the comparison, they're also up exactly 35.35%. So we are, together with El Paso, the strongest border market for retail and sales tax activity, which is obviously very encouraging to see that strength. And if we look across the state, there's also some interesting factors because we are outperforming many others as well in terms of our growth rate. San Antonio is up 26.17%. Once again, we're at 35.35. We have Houston up at 21.6%. We have Dallas up 28.35%. And we have Fort Worth up 31.95%. So we outperformed those. The one major market in the state that has clearly been a driver, particularly this year, as we see in the numbers, is Austin. And the growth has truly returned to Austin. Austin, comparing once again year-to-date 2022 to year-to-date 2019, is up a whopping 38.97%, so almost 39%. Really, really strong growth. And when we look at the year-to-date numbers, this comparison 2022 to 2019, there's also one more number that I thought was quite fascinating, and that is the San Marcos number. So for those of you who have followed us and have listened to this report for over the years, you know that during the pandemic, the San Marcos number was through the roof. And that was really driven in large part because San Marcos is not only home to the outlet malls, but was also home to many of the distribution centers for the major online retailers. And prior to legislative change that happened in the last legislative session in Texas, sales tax used to be paid to the community that had the distribution center, not where the shopper was at. There were some changes made to the law that now have more reflect the sales tax allocation to the community where the buyer is at rather than where the distribution center is. And we're seeing that effect in the San Marcos number because comparing, once again, year-to-date 2022 to year-to-date 2019, San Marcos is actually down 1.31%. While in 2020, they were up very high. We're talking in the 20-30% range. And so we're definitely seeing that law kind of have an impact. We're seeing that the allocation are being properly going to the communities, and I'm sure that our local communities here in the Valley are also benefiting from that change in the law, and they're seeing that sales tax from online shoppers now properly allocated in their communities as well. So, bottom line, we continue to perform quite well. We are tracking along with the state over the last several years. Actually, if we look at that 3-year window, we are actually slightly ahead of the state. We are, along with El Paso, the best performing border market, and we have nothing to hide when it comes to comparing ourselves to other parts of the state of Texas, with maybe the exception of the really continuously rapidly growing Austin area, which continues to lead the state in performance. So I think from a perspective of Valley leaders and Valley retailers and Valley business people, I think we can be very proud of how we have managed the last 3 years. Obviously not everything is perfect, but as the numbers show, our economy too continues to be very vibrant, and the outlook into the future continues to be very bright as well.
I know when we meet up, we often use the phrase that you don't like to sound like a broken record, but do you think with today's report that is the case? Because it seems like every month is good news. Yeah,
every month has been steady. To some extent, yes, I do feel like a broken record. There was nothing really super exciting in the reports over the last few months, and that's why we didn't also meet on a clear every month basis, because there was nothing really groundbreaking to report. This year has been very steady, positive, and steady. We saw obviously a very short negative impact in 2020 and a rapid recovery. We had a very, very strong 2021, which is also why some of our numbers in 2022 comparing us to the state look weaker because we were much stronger in 2021. But all in all, as we look back on the 3-year time frame, news are positive. And I think if we drive around our communities and we engage with our community, we see a very positive growth. We see very positive growth. We see new investment. I think we are seeing, the valley as a whole once again emerging out of a crisis situation stronger than it entered it. We saw that clearly in the financial crisis in 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, and we're seeing a repeat of that now with the pandemic. And when you look at it historically, after the financial crisis, the region experienced tremendous growth. And so I'm crossing toes and fingers that we will see that movie repeat. And we will see once again a tremendous growth, as we completely, hopefully soon emerge out of the pandemic, and are really be able to make a big difference. Going back to economic development is just not just retail; it's obviously manufacturing and trade and transportation, logistics, and all these things. And all those factors look good as well. And so I think that there's exciting times ahead.
One last question, because you mentioned earlier about online sales and how, with the law change, San Marcos isn't doing as well. It used to be is the home for the distribution centers, but no longer are the sales tax revenues measured based on where the goods are leaving from. Another aspect to online sales, though, that I'd be curious, I know you follow this very closely, is our region, particularly maybe the Upper Valley, the McAllen area, relies so much on the shoppers from Monterey and Saltillo coming up to buy goods. With online purchasing accelerating because of COVID, what happens if the shoppers in Monterey start to purchase their goods online and get them delivered? Are those going to be coming from distribution centers in Mexico or from Texas? Could that have an impact on our economy?
That's a great question, Steve. So my understanding is, unless it has changed recently, that didn't catch that, was that distribution centers U.S. distribution centers don't ship to Mexico. That is my understanding. Usually the companies operate country-specific distribution centers. And so I don't think we would necessarily see a direct impact. What you do have, though, is folks have P.O. boxes here on this side, or they might have a vacation home. And they shop on the U.S. site. They have it delivered to their P.O. box or to their home here, and then take stuff back home down south. So I think obviously that's a positive for us. If folks are shopping, let's say Monterey at home in Monterey, having it delivered to Monterey, it is my understanding that we unfortunately don't see any direct benefit from that. Now, do we see a negative impact from that? Maybe potentially, but I think that there's a couple of factors to consider. Number one, and we've had this conversation over the years, while the folks that are coming from across the river and are our guests coming in from down south and who shop and spend their weekends here, continue to have an impact, and an important impact. That impact no longer has this scale that moves our numbers, because the local consumer has become so much stronger. And so I think that's factor number one. I don't think we get to see that impact in those numbers anymore as strongly, at least, as we used to in the past. And then number two, folks come here not just purely for shopping. They come here for the experience of being in our communities, to dine in the restaurants, to attend events, to enjoy their getaway home, go to the island or whatever their reason for crossing is. And then it's a complete reason. It's not just the shopping aspect. And so I think that even if there is an added convenience and flexibility now with online shopping also in Mexico, the attraction of coming here because of all the auxiliary activities beyond the shopping, I think still brings them to this market. And so if we want to maintain that shopper, back to conversations we've had also in the past, I think it's important to continue engaging them and to promote and attract and invite them to all these auxiliary activities beyond just, hey, our products are cheaper by factor of X. And I think we'll be able to maintain this relationship that we have with our friends from down south. And so, very long answer, let me give you a short version of it. I think that there may be an impact. That impact will no longer move the needle as strong as it used to in the past, but I think that the impact is mitigated by the fact that it's not just purely the shopping that drives people to come here, it's also all the other pleasant auxiliaries that they have available to them when they come.
Well, Matt, thank you. Those are all the questions I had. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it in terms of the sales tax report. Once again, bottom line, they're positive. They've been steadily positive. There's very few things on the horizon that tell me that things are going to turn negative in any time in the near future. Knock on wood. And I think we can once again look back from 2022 to 2019. I think we can, as a region, can be very proud of how we've managed through the pandemic. And I think we can look forward to some strong prosperity in the years to come.
Matt Ruszczak, thank you so much for today's interview.
Thank you, Steve.